What the hell is happening, folks? Let's crack open a cold one and take a look at TopRamen versus Steven. Game 4. Or 3? No, Game 3. It's on Radium. Another Bitty B map. And we are going to see Steven spawning in the top right as the golden brown Protoss. Oh, it's dark olive. And of course, down here in the bottom left, we have Mr. Ramen here as the white Terran. Oh, it's platinum. I should have known. I should have known. Well, that's all right. Today's recording session is not coming off to the great start when it comes to colors, but I am drinking an Ultra Strawberry Dreams Monster. So I hope you guys like that kind of flavoring. We're feeling a little fruity today. And so I usually, it's funny because I don't really enjoy strawberry by itself, but when it's used as an ingredient for a flavor of some kind in some kind of beverage, it's not bad. It's not bad. Ramen seems to be going for the double stockade opener here. I am a little puzzled as to why he waited for the first one. He delayed the first one so he could put the second one down at the same time. I don't know what the significance of that is. If it's just meant to be like, oh, if he scouts me late, he doesn't know how soon I got it. I'm trying to read into what that could be. Maybe Ramen will be so graceful as to give us that information in the comments. Unless I can maybe piece it together myself later. Ooh, if you don't see a TopRamen comment in the description, and it's already been out for a day or so, then you kind of know. I guess I know what that must mean. That must mean that I got it right. All right, the scribe coming out here from Steven. It is going to scout him happening, and it's both of these stockades being put down at the same time. We do have a 2-gate opener. So it's worth pointing out here. Obviously, the stockade did get a little bit cheaper, and the fulcrum did get a little bit cheaper within the last week or so, I want to say. And so yeah, it's one of those things that I suppose you can afford this a little bit faster. I will say this has put TVZ in an interesting standpoint as well, and I was a little bit worried about that, but I've been able to rush down a lot of Zerg players with just going straight into, double stockade or what have you. And, or actually it was like, I think the build I developed was stockade, making pure Maverick into a fulcrum, making pure Goliath. And that is an interesting build order. I hope to see somebody do it in a different environment later on. Maybe somebody can take that build from me and optimize it. I feel like my level of influence, my specific skill set as a player could definitely be related to theory crafting and trying weird stuff. And, that is the kind of way that I play the game. I play it very strangely. You guys all play your normal Cosmonarchy, and I'm over here playing advanced Cosmonarchy. Demented and deranged Cosmonarchy. So we will have a star pad out from TopRamen. It's pretty trivial, and I guess you could say typical, rather, to use a drop or some kind of star pad opening, right? It's a little bit more attractive to go for a gas-heavy structure like the star pad over a fulcrum, because the fulcrum is more mineral-heavy, and when you open double stockade, you just have more mineral expenditures. You're making non-stop Maverick production. That's every 11 seconds. You're doing 100 minerals to make 2 of those bad boys, and obviously the embassy coming up here for Steven could mean that he's going to go for a witness. Could also mean artisans. And, of course, it could mean an envoy. It's a very flexible structure. The envoy is the transport of the Protoss race, formerly known as the shuttle. So, sponsored sip time. And we have the Trojan coming out. I guess I really should be saying, who sponsors the sips. I shouldn't just keep saying sponsored sip with no real explanation. Now, the Draconins are going to poke up and see the anchor. I will also reveal to them the single Hurakan moving through. There's a small air radius of reveal that happens when you do that. Now, the structure in question, the embassy is making a transport. So we will see double drop from, single drop, but one from each player, which is very interesting. Now, that Trojan does dive backwards for some kind of evasive maneuver. We're not sure quite why. And it will, of course, be the 8 Maverick drop. But oh no, Steven is standing strong. Does he notice it on the minimap? I believe his Draconins should have seen that, but it doesn't look like he snapped his camera over to it. And it also doesn't seem like he's responding to it. I know that, he's actually, preemptively putting his Draconins over here. It's kind of a clue. Of course, he might have to cancel that Nexus in the natural if he wants to. The Ministry has gone down elsewhere. Wraith inbound, and so it looks like we are going to see the bio move out come in, as a double Draconin drop is good for the envoy back then. All of the bio stimming out to try to contest these 3 Draconins at the side, but we already have 2 dead Masons in the main as Chaos is breaking out. It looks like the Mavericks will be bypassing the Nexus and earmarked for that very important mineral line in the main base. The 3 Draconins swarming back over to that natural as the Mavericks, first of them, are going to go ahead and get unloaded. The rest of them are good, and we are going to see some counter-eco damage happening over here. Great focus fire from Ramen. He's found the exact time that he needed to really execute on that, because remember, his ministry has not been delayed. His mining has been, for sure. And the Wraith even spots an artisan that's dispatched to the bottom right. Wow. Okay, a lot of stuff just happened there, and thankfully I think we are going to get a brief lull in the action. Oh! Especially as Steven just loses his envoy full of Dracodons. That is unfortunate. The Wraith once again finding yet another potential victim in the bottom right of the map. That will undoubtedly involve... Oh, wait, no, we might see another counter. He does turn around at the perfect time here. Ramen is going to emergency unload. He gets all 5 Mavericks out. It will be dropped. And it looks like maybe he'll be able to put some damage onto a Dracodon, but that's pretty much all he can afford. These, okay, only one Artisan actually gets killed by that Wraith. There is still one more in the bottom right. Let's kind of take a stock of where we are at. The worker damage from Ramen was much better than what Steven was able to do with the Drac drop. But that being said, the bio still had to take a lot of time to do something over here and to respond to that. Meanwhile, this Wraith has gotten, it's going to be 2 kills before its time is out. In fact, do we have anything that can counter this right now? No, we do not. Okay, there's a single Dracodon over there, and it looks like the Wraith will not be able to pick that second kill. Anchor is going to get blown up very, very fast, and this might just force a stim out and try to retreat. But remember, bio is not exactly going to be in a good tradable position right now. The amount of Mavericks is not quite high enough to really force that fight, I don't think. Maybe Ramen disagrees in an open fight. This Artisan's still not tasked on anything. Top left going to be garrisoned by those Artisans. So I think Ramen is in a much more commanding position because of the fact that he still has the necessary bio to hold off an assault from the 2-gate. He might even be able to pick a Dracodon here. As long as he keeps garrisoning Wraiths into these spots to stop the Artisans from getting this stuff for free. It's bold of him to just be like, well, I might as well get a bit of gas while I'm here before I'm eliminated. Now, there's nothing in the top left, so that's going to be a stacking problem later on. Yeah, I guess we're only now seeing an expansion of production from either player, and right now it is definitely Ramen doing that. It's still hanging on for dear life on 2 gates is Steven. Now, he's not out of the game, obviously, but he is going to be going for some rogue galleries to support, and he's adding some redundancy pylons around those gateways as well. We'll need some static defense here. No follow-up drop just yet. It's going to be double Vestry, and it is Goliaths. Okay, so we are going to see Ramen transition into a Goliath-heavy composition. The Wraith is moving to the 12 o'clock, and will most likely sweep to the top left. I'd love to see it do that. Yep, it looks like it is going to be earmarked to attack the Artisans. Now, they are able to defend themselves to some degree. I think 2 of them should be able to kill a Wraith, but it's not immediately known. Yeah, instead it looks like he's just going to retreat. Maybe not. They probably wouldn't be able to do that much versus the Wraith once they're low, obviously. But one of them is going to get aggroed. That's kind of interesting. he's got a fleet of them. Now, okay, all that being said, right, we do have our bio pushing out and pushing around the Dracodons in the middle of the map. There is still one Artisan over here, not quite garrisoning or harvesting anything over there. That's a little bit unfortunate. The Artisan count is certainly high. We got Dracodons in line. We got Kabbalists being made. They're pretty good versus, you know, isolated groups of units. Not so against the horde of Mavericks, and now the Goliaths are starting to come out as well. We do see a couple, it's actually 4 Dracodons popping for about as many bio units. That is not going to be a good trade for Steven. We'll see what he can try to stabilize on. This is already an interesting match. I mean, looking at this game so far, I think what we're witnessing is a pretty strong opening from Ramen. He was able to salvage his position from earlier. And now what do we need from Steven? He sends his Kabbalists out. He knows that he wants to sow chaos behind enemy lines. And with no lodestone, with no static detection here from Mr. Ramen, it's going to be a little bit interesting to see what he can do from that. How he can respond to that threat. Now, this Goliath is going to get focused out almost certainly, but Dracodons hold their last shot. Kabbalists once again roving in. Now, okay, this could be big because the Ant Seal might be perfectly parked in such a position to detect. I actually missed that had been constructed. So Steven being able to try to pull that out of position, and you know, the Ant Seal does have that defensive view. So here we go. We're going to get those Kabbalists in behind the enemy lines. That is very, very good for Mr. Steven. He will be able to hack away at the economy. It's going to be problematic, to say the least, for Ramen. He pulls back in with his Ant Seal. He's going to go ahead and try to focus down that Kabbalist. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Okay, the Shamans are going to go ahead and deploy, try to keep themselves in a in a good spot. And remember, the Dracodons can still pressure around the front gates. Wow, I've never seen that quite, that little track taken by that Goliath. That was an interesting little walk up. Where are the Masons? Oh, one of them's in the third now. More have been waypointed down, it looks like. Finally, we're going to see one more of them. No, not killed. Oh, you know what I think happened? This one must have walked up here and then teleported into the third. Never mind. Steven seems to be taking the fight to Ramen in a really big way. Quite a significant way right now. Mineral walking not really doing Ramen any favors as his Goliaths are trying to get de-collided from each other. Now it looks like we're going to get into that situation where a lot of eco damage is dealt in favor of Steven. And Ramen is suddenly in a very much not a good spot. Now, I will say he has a very strong military force that heads up Steven is not going to be able to deal with. And so as long as we can see Ramen move across the map, he can still get some kind of counterpunch done. 12 o'clock obviously involved this artisan not harvesting gas, still in the top left, sort of forgotten about right now by our Dark Olive Protoss. We are going to see a Crucible and 2 Prostration stages up. Love to see some Pariahs out. That would definitely help out. And Ramen just continuing to power forward with his composition. Again, his army, stupendous. The better of the two armies that we have on the field right now. But does he feel safe enough that he can move across? And does he even know that he's got the army advantage? That I do not know. It doesn't seem like he recognizes that as of right now. The clerics are out. The shamans are out. He is going to see if he can maybe push ahead. And Steven actually wants to try to fight. I think this is a mistake, but as long as he falls back at the appropriate times, he'll be doing okay. Remember, he still has the opportunity for the Kabbalists to get some action done. Looks like one more Mason will end up falling before the Kabbalist is cleared up. That's not exactly as cost-efficient as you want to be at this stage, but Steven's still forcing some of the units out of the rallies for Ramen to remain in the right spot. All right, well, let's see. Big scribe transfer, well, not so big, it's just 7 of them, but they will be spotted, it looks like, by Ramen's Goliaths before they are executed. And the big blob of mech and machine, man and machine are going to continue sort of consolidating power in the middle of the map. Bunch of idle artisans still not quite intact. I love the vagrants just standing guard over there. More Goliaths wandering out. Shamans being produced. Antseal on top of this anchor. Another one in the back to protect the Masons from interruptions. I do think Kabbalists are a really great APM tax upon your opponent, you know? Just great attention tax in that sense. And we do have some Pariahs coming out here of those empowered prostration stages. When you got this overlay over them, you know that they're producing units faster, and that includes scribes. It also means that the wardens will be operating at a greater efficiency as well. That is an attack speed boost for them. So you're going to see that. Could be some pretty good channeling over here. Now, these Pariahs are, as much as they have that extra armor and extra health, it almost doesn't matter because there's just so much combined force between the Mavericks and the Goliaths. They're rending everything, especially as those Mavericks continue to stim. Apologies for the interruption. We were just in the middle of a battle, and as I was mentioning, yeah, the power of the Goliaths and the Mavericks is so much sustained firepower. We have this Vulture flank coming in from TopRamen as well, which I think is going to make a pretty big difference, especially if one of those mines ends up connecting. It does not, however. Another Pariah charging the backline. As soon as they kill anything, they are going to ascend every unit in the area for Steven, and so he is really dining out on that attack speed boost right now. That being said, we have some scribes transferring over. Looks like they're going to be playing Minesweeper while the rest of the force is headed off as Ramen falls back to try to consolidate. Does he have more reinforcements coming? Doesn't really look like it. These artisans continuing to do their best work. At the very least, they're moving into a direction where they can do that. They don't actually appear to be harvesting anything right now. Gave Steven a little bit too much credit. He's got plenty more Pariahs and Vagrants coming in the production tab, and as we see, Ramen is going to keep up the pressure. He's got more Goliaths storming in, trying their best to make contact with the enemy. Now that's an Antseal down. No more protection, no more detection. If that ends up costing him versus some Kabbalah switch or something, that could be pretty significant, but it doesn't really look like that's what's going to happen. We got more scribes going down, mulched by the Goliaths, and it looks like that's going to trigger TopRamen to move to the top left, and that's actually where we see some Wardens being set up. Remember, those two Vagrants from earlier might end up slowing this push, as of course Steven is going to attempt to use his reinforcements, put them into great effect. He's trying to pull the workers back a little bit as the rest of his forces are really cleaning house here. Look at how long those Pariahs stay alive, and of course they are going to mulch through more and more of the Terrans. That is allowing the Vagrants and the Dracodons to get so much more attack speed. The workers coming back, that might be a point of focus for Ramen as he continues to saturate his fourth base. He's just transferred everything over there. He's got tier 2 on the way, so he is sitting pretty economically speaking, but if he loses his entire army here trying to force a fight that he might not be able to win, especially as that Ascension buff comes in to increase the attack speed of the Protoss army, then that might be a big mistake for our Terran player. He's going to try to evacuate, but it doesn't look like he got the best of the orders. Another Wraith finding bottom right has been recolonized by Steven's Artisans. He's still not harvesting anything. There we go. He's figured it out. And okay, so where are we at after that engagement? It looks to me like we've got Steven going to be going up against a heavier mech push here as another Fulcrum comes down, but Steven does have that extra bit of power from his prostration stages. They have been enchanted by the Crucible. There's another Volataran units that looks like they have either fallen back or consolidated too. I don't actually think that Ramen can win that fight, but thankfully for him, Steven is not actually participating against it. That's a Wraith going to be moving back over to the bottom right as, well, I mean, I guess looking at this, Ramen has reclaimed a little bit of tempo, right? I saw this treasury going up in the production tab earlier. We already have the lodestone up, so he can detect any hostiles that are coming in that are cloaked, and now his tier 2 is going to start getting leveraged. It's captaincies coming up. I wonder if we're going to see reclaimers after all. That does seem like a very commonplace tier 2 pivot for Terrans, and another artisan going down to that cloaked Wraith. You have to get close enough to the Wraith in order to decloak it. It's proximity cloaking as, well, Steven's going to mass up for a potential attack onto 9 o'clock. I wouldn't put it past TopRamen to end up defending this, riposting this, and then remaining ahead from that point on. He is capping his gas. He's going to go ahead and garrison a few Goliaths in the lodestone just at the perfect time as the Pariahs stomp on in. Now, you can't really repair the lodestone with Masons versus Pariahs. They have that splash damage from their line traceability, and that is going to be a total galvanization of the Protoss force. We are not going to see this treasury stay alive. That will be burst down. The Wraith has found a 4th base in production there for Steven, but otherwise has cleared the right side area of Artisans, and the Pariahs are trying their best to move forward. We've got some Charlatans in here as well. That's really multiplying the damage that you're going to see. These Goliaths are going to get burst through like nothing. All of a sudden, what has been the mainstay for the Terran arsenal is not really going to cut it. They need some way to rend the armor of the Pariah so that they can actually punch through and get some damage dealt to them, but it's just not working out. Remember, this is an army that Steven has constructed without any sustain whatsoever, and it's really not looking like he even needs it right now. We got the repairs coming in, but yep, as mentioned before, all the workers are just going to get mulched. There was nothing in there anyway. Cyclops, Goliaths, Clerics, they're trying their best, but it looks like this could be an overwhelming push for Steven. He might be able to take an advantage of the fight. We have a Cyclops drop earmarked to the top right, but that is a depleted base. Even if they get past the Vagrants, they won't be dealing that much economic damage. Has Robin run out of steam at the perfect opportunity for Steven to reclaim him? Oh, look at that. He went for Strigas again. I love the idea of the Strigas for rending the armor. It makes a lot of sense there. He even pivoted into a couple of Hurricanes, but it doesn't look like he has enough money after losing 2 bases in a row to really get his tier 2 operational, and now he's lost his natural, which has been depleted anyway. Things going from bad to worse as the Pariahs are barely escaping from total death. Well, I say that, one of them did end up dying, but I think that's pretty much it. I don't see how Ramen can make it out of this one. That is a win for Steven, and we are off to a very strong start for that Protoss player. The Australian, the man from down under. That was a pretty interesting back and forth game, honestly. You know, I would hazard a guess that was another game that, you know, from one standpoint or another, we could say, job's done, but let's do another one. Let's go into game 4 between these two. Frosted Forest is a map up next, another BiddyB map. Let's see what happens when you start to freeze the forest. We've got TopRamen on the top right as the Silver Terran, and Steven in the bottom left as Mahogany Protoss. All right, you know what? I was talking about how Ramen might be able to reclaim himself, but actually, I'm redeeming myself. That's a different reword. And overall, I would say there's some discussion about some other build order. They must have been talking in the lobby continuing on. They did that actually in the previous game as well. I just didn't comment on it because I was too busy introducing everybody. But I will say that at this point, I've got the color guesses down. You know, that's much better than what I did in the previous round where I thought dark olive was golden brown. You know, honest mistakes. But we do have double stockade coming this time around from TopRamen. He isn't actually waiting for the second one to put down both of them at the same time. I still don't know what that might have been. That's still like an unanswered question for me. I did not actually get a straight answer there. So yeah, again, beseeching TopRamen for answers and comments. Maybe he's already done it. If not, reminder. Now, that being said, Steven has been having a fun time of scouting very early on, right? And so I do like the way that I'm seeing him adapt to the game. I love the inclusion of the Pariahs there. I think that was a great choice. And I'm not really so sure that the the mainstay keeping it to Goliath's move is necessarily the right one. Now, in the first game that these two played, it was Tesseract. I've also just realized I forgot to update the overlay. My apologies, Steven. Let me credit you for your win. But Tesseract, that game, obviously Skytoss came in later on, but I think the Cantors were really the big thing that allowed Steven to make it in to his position that he ended up finding himself, where he could actually expand over a good portion of the map. We can see the fundamentals, right? The macro is there. I like that, but I also think that Ramen probably needed to switch into either like heavy Wraith play at tier 1 or a faster air switch at tier 2, maybe Wyverns, maybe, Gorgons, or even potentially Sundogs. Obviously, the rotary add-on for the Sundog is quite expensive when you factor everything else in, so I think it did get a price cut recently, but still, it's still fairly pricey. Neblime can help you out, of course. He is another Aussie. You guys should be on at similar times, although maybe not, because as mentioned before, Neblime does sometimes have a silly sleep schedule, where he's like, I wake up at 5 a.m. my time so I can play in Cosmonarchy tournaments. So, you know how it is. So, with all that said, TopRamen going to be chatting his opponent up while he gets his Mavericks operational. He's asking him about time zone. Ramen is on the... I never remember if Ramen is Eastern time or not. I always think he is, but... I don't know. Sometimes it seems like he's on Western time. He just stays up pretty late. 10 p.m. is just early enough for him to make an evening coffee and grind some Cosmo. So as he runs this Dracodon down, I'll remind you guys that you can donate on coffee. If you want to see this Maverick killed by this Dracodon killed by Mavericks, then you should donate on coffee, because I think that's the only way that it happens. 2 more reinforcements coming on in. Oh! Donate on coffee right now because that Dracodon died. It's the beautiful, beautiful time of year where you send me your money and I make the game better. Of course, 50% of it does go to Week 7, so shout out to that. And we do have an anchor up, but it's actually not staffed right now, which is kind of funny. Okay, there you go. Ministry on location, very nice. He's actually expanding ahead of his opponent. Of course, the Dracodons will be able to use shields to regenerate over time. We've got more Dracodons kind of falling back. I wonder about that. Is he worried about, like, the hard committal from all of these stimmed Mavericks? Yeah, it looks like he is. And you know what? They are in a number that they can just run you down. But remember, there's 4 Dracodons here. You just have to be able to take these potshot bursts and fall back, because the stim pack is so powerful. It makes Mavericks so strong. All right, one of them getting very, very low. For every Dracodon that's killed by Mavericks, we need another $3 donation monthly to the coffee page. And right now, we are only at $3. And you know what? If we only end at $3, that's still cool, too. Will somebody take that pledge? Will they do it? Who knows? Somebody will have to find out. If everybody in our Discord server, which is nearly 700 members, joined and donated $3 a month, then I think I would be able to quit my job. I don't know. That sounds pretty good. So just keep in mind that we are always looking for those monthly donos. Now, okay, I'm done shilling for now. Hey, that Nexus looks like it's off-center. Add an extra worker to your gas count as a result. Dracodons are the name of the game for Steven. His Nexus is almost complete, although I will note it did come down a little bit late. He is going to be going into Mass Gateway as a style. That's kind of interesting, because in the past he's gone for Ardent Authority. He's obviously gone for the Rogue Gallery in the previous game. He just killed a bunch of Hurricanes, an offense I will never forgive him for. And yeah, I'm interested in seeing where he ends up going from there. We've got triple Stockade from Ramen, now switching into a Fulcrum, slowly saturating his extra base. He's up by 3 workers, so part of that is down to the fact that he expanded faster. Part of that is probably just like 1 missed macro cycle or whatever. Here's the Priestum coming in from the Mavericks. Gotta watch out for that. But yeah, I do think that Dracodons are still pretty potent, and it looks like he's just going to go 4-gate Dracman, our Australian, using Neblime's brain cells from the previous round, where, what was it? I think it was that tournament against Hamster. So it would have been the upper final. I think it might have been the last game, actually. He went quad gate on 1 base, 4-gate, or maybe 5-gate, something like that. So it was absurd either way. But it looks like that's what Steven is doing. He's actually got a couple of Dracodons back at home, just in case, I suppose, of anti-drop. At some point, all the stim packs are becoming more of a liability. But we do have a Phalanx on the way to help hold this, and we do have double Vestry to make a couple of Clerics nice and early so that Ramen can patch up his drug-out of Lunatic Mavericks, it looks like. That's basically what I'm seeing. Let's see. The Lunatic Force continues. Stimmin', charging forward. Get him. Get him. I love the one Huracan as well. He's just so cool. Isn't Ahmed so cool, even though he shoots fire and that would make him warm? Ahmed hot. He out here hot. That being said, the saturation continues to improve for Ramen. His Mavericks are trying to hold down the fort. The Phalanx has been deployed, and now we can see what is to come after that. Ardent for Steven. I do feel like you can either go Ardent to Cantor, or you can go Grand Library Cantavis, and either one is a pretty good choice here versus the Bio. I probably wouldn't go for Stargate, but I guess you could go Exemplar. It's just, it feels like it's easier to counter that with Switch. Like, if you just go add a bunch of Goliaths or something, then it doesn't feel like Exemplars are going to be as useful. Whereas if you think about the Cantavis, it'll still be useful against mech, and the Acantors, we did see how powerful they could be against, like, Goliath Cleric balls of enemies. That we saw that on Tesseract, so we are going to see the Acantor out. It does look to me like what we are seeing is a Phalanx-based move-out. He's going Bio-Phalanx. This is neat. I like this. He's going to add some Shamans. Going to see if he can't just shove the Dracodons away. Now, there are 14 of them. You really don't want to be losing all of your forces to this push. We're going to have to see what the response is as the deployments come out. One of them does end up bringing off a warning shot. Third base on the way here for Steven. Recognizes he has that economic tempo. We have no command center, no ministry rather, coming online here for TopRamen. But does he want to think about doing that? There we go. Just as I say it, he comes up with it. Ooh, 2 shots, 2 kills. Phalanx is really enjoying the fact that the Dracodons in some cases have been softened up by those Mavericks. He ends up trading 2 Mavericks for 2 Dracs. That is so much more in favor of the Terran player. It's not even funny. But that being said, of course, we will soon be in a world where the third base is operational for Steven faster than it is for our Terran player. So what does TopRamen want to do? He's just going to continue producing Phalanxes for now. I thought maybe he would hold units so he could get to tier 2, but it doesn't really feel like his economy can support that right now. So he's going to go ahead and unpack his Phalanxes. He'll be moving out with a fully refreshed army. We've got a Crucible out on the sort of plateau over here. So all of this weird buggy-looking tile is unbuildable to my knowledge, and so basically up until that point you can build freely. And so we are going to see what Steven wants to make as a result of that. There's the tier 2, so it looks like Ramen doesn't mind building it on 2 bases. Obviously he has his 3rd ministry nearly complete. The Dracodons are moving across the bottom area of the map, and the TopRamen forces, the Terran forces, are moving across. They will actually be spotted by the Legionnaires here. So this is going to set up for a flank. I do like this position. Dracodon Legionnaire is an interesting composition. We're going to see if it has any legs versus the bio and bio tank area over here. We are seeing, obviously, the total interruption of the attack. Is this just going to end up being another base trade? Do we have enough of a defensive maneuver over here? Actually, we have no Phalanxes. They did just get intercepted. We have a little bit of minefield set up over here, but it's not really going to be that significant. A horde of Hurricanes is descending. That Crucible was mightily canceled or destroyed very easily. There's only one Acantor here because I think this Ardent Authority will be brought down before that Acantor is done. Meanwhile, it looks like the forces here got a little bit out of sync with each other, and now we are going to end up seeing the workers have to be scrambled to try to deal with that. Yeah, that is indeed only one Acantor on the field right now. The Ardent has been destroyed. It was put a little bit too far forward. Tier 2 almost complete for TopRamen, but, you know, it's going to be a while before he can actually use it for anything. And now he's just using he's focusing entirely on the push into the enemy force. Remember, he has no way to reinforce right now. So he has a horde of Phalanxes. They are going to go ahead and deploy. They're helping to soften up and bludgeon this Protoss force as it's trying to come out of its rallies. Very exciting early stages of the game. We have a couple of Phalanxes. They are going to pop out on that side and probably draw the force in. Meanwhile, he's pushing in and trying to deny that natural. He has not stopped the third base from going up. The Dracodons make a dive onto it. I really would love to see the Masons be pulled. I mean, there is this Acantor that looks like it is on the front lines there. Yep, they're okay. So there are actually 2 Acantors on the field. Looks like that one just made his way out there. The tank mode Phalanxes are going to be made a little bit vulnerable, but as the Legionnaires fall, oh, they didn't end up focusing down the Acantor. Okay, now they will. But I think that this is going to be a broken force. I don't actually think that TopRamen can continue pushing forward now. He gets another round of Phalanxes out. He's only queued up one of them. He's got his captaincies coming online, so his tier 2 tech starting to be leveraged. His Mason count is worse than Steven's scribe count, but as of right now, it looks like he's going to fall back with the forces that he has, which are really just 2 Phalanxes. He needs to stop this push from doing any further damage, and I just don't think he'll be able to. I think we're going to close this episode out with Mr. Ramen being down 1-3 for Steven. I mean, that's pretty significant. A second Acantor made it across the field. Looks like maybe it had always been there with the push and it just took so long. You got a couple of advanced bio units coming out, and they can really only take a few hits from the Acantors. You can see actually that the Acantors are focusing on trying to kill the workers. which it's as good as choice as any. Oh, unfortunately, couldn't quite splash them both. That will indeed start regenerating shields. We got the Mavericks returning home. The one Heracles is still here. 25 workers is all he's got. He's actually going to be probably dropped lower than that, if I had to guess. And, you know, the follow-up attack of just pure Zealot should actually crush through here. There's a small outside chance that maybe if the Heracles count gets out of hand that we could actually see a hold, but it just doesn't quite seem possible. We got an Exemplar coming as well. How are you going to fight against that? Okay. Well, I say that. There are Apostles coming. So if it's not a decisive victory, which it's looking like it might be a little bit difficult to be, then we could actually see the Apostles swing the fight. Let's not count them out just yet. I've seen surprising things happen with Apostles. Let's just put it that way. Now, that being said, whenever any unit that you give over is going to be worse in theory because of the fact that it is slower, right? So he's going to end up picking one Apostle, and then he should just pull away, but unfortunately, he's not quite able to do so. Yeah, if he kills it now, that would be one thing, because it's isolated, right? But, all right. So Steven has 2,000 minerals. He definitely thought he was about to win, and then he was held off at the last second there. He does have a much better economy. He's resaturated his natural. It never ended up falling in the first place, so that's very helpful for him. Obviously, no Ministry Snipe here might have been, in some cases, considered a missed opportunity. He wanted to go for the jugular instead of just trying to go for the slow bleed out. Ramen now going to try to do his best to come back. He's very far behind. His Ministry has landed at the third base. So it's a horde of Dracodons, a single Exemplar. There is another Exemplar out somewhere, right? Or did that one make it all the way home? They move slow, so I wouldn't suspect that, but apparently it did. Yep, looks like there's two of them. So he's going to slowly make, you know, a bunch of Exemplar. I think that will be... Like, this force looks like it should be good, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Setting up a bunch of rogue galleries here, I do approve of that. You can get some good chaff out. Vagrants are also kind of sleeper hits against Reclamation, because they only actually provide a corpse when they fully die, like they die the second time. So the first time they die, they aren't actually turned into chaff, which is pretty nice. Single Mason scouting out the rogue gallery transition, so I suppose that'll be preempted, at least in theory, by whatever Ramen wants to do here. Again, his force is not going to be powerful enough, in my opinion, to clear through here, but let's see if he can convince Steven to fall back. Some of the corpses are going to be potentially consumed here. No, it looks like not going to be the case, so... Clears out some of those reclaimed zealots, Harakan as well. Loses 2 Dracodons, which isn't exactly ideal, but as long as he fights when the Phalanxes aren't around, you can see him waypointing the Witness very, very intelligently there. There goes one of the Apostles. It is going to go ahead and get reclaimed. It's trying to get right on top of him. Of course, these Exemplar are falling. If he's not too careful there. Yeah, he does need to fall back. It looks very silly because it's just mass Apostle right now. They don't really deal that much damage. So I don't really think that this is a scary looking army here. But he's going to see if he can dive onto it. I think he's not yet realized the source of the reclaim effect being the Apostles themselves. They're going to go ahead and try to frontline there. It does take a while to clear them out, and, you know, the Phalanx is then this is exactly the wrong angle of attack to take versus the Apostle. He needs to like kind of be sniping them, or he needs to try to just move around away from the enemy and maybe try to go where the Apostles are not. So it's not exactly what you would think in that situation. Especially when you have so many of them. When Ramen just masses them, he's actually hoping that you give him fights like that, because he doesn't have any kill pressure by himself. He can't take a fight to you. You've got to give him your units, and that's the only way. He's trying to get on top of where you are at so that he can reclaim your army. He doesn't have the tech for Apostles, or for Autocrats, excuse me. So he has to play it more defensively and just try to sustain you. Now, the Dracodon count is very, very high here, obviously. Quite obviously. Where's the Focus Fire coming out here? The splash damage, do we have any? We've got 6 Apostles still. The count is still pretty good. What the hell is happening? That's a good question, yeah. He doesn't quite realize. Yeah. I mean, he had lots of resources here, but unfortunately, when you don't know... Long boys. When you don't know what they do, then you're probably just going to get confused. You can actually see the nerfs to the way that Reclamation works, where the reclaimed unit isn't nearly as powerful, have definitely been kicking in, because on paper, this army that Ramen has accrued should definitely win the fight a lot faster, but it's taken them quite a bit, and they do die pretty fast. One of the ways around this, by the way, ironically, is going for the pariah, because it consumes the corpse when it kills something, making it impossible for the apostle to use it. So that's another factor. Goliaths have too much power. They're so durable. You might be right about that, Steve. The scribe army is intensifying. Steven definitely befuddled. Architects are usually pretty good versus them. Also, I think Acantors pretty much annihilate them because the units are frozen and stunned, as opposed to, like, they can't do anything during the revive, so they just sit there, take hits. Yeah, Ramen did intro him in the worst possible way because he had no minerals and only gas, basically. So it does change your thinking, because obviously it's a very powerful mechanic, and then it's based on the corpse itself. And so if you either you either fight from a range, or you... Yeah, so he doesn't realize that it's only when they shoot, and they have to be shooting at a hostile, right? So he's just not quite learning it. And this is the game where I think they were describing how they sat and talked for a bit, because the game in their minds was over. So I suppose we'll quickly speed up and see if there's anything else. So now he's figured it out. He's like, yeah, okay, wait, that sounds doable. That sounds doable. All right, I think Steven, honestly, he had that in the bag, but he got knowledge checked. That happens when you got a very different mechanic than people are used to, and that's the first time that they're seeing it. So, lads, we will be back. We will return with another round of Cosmonarchy. Between these two, we've got 2 more games to go through. I think they're supposed to be the longer of the 2, so I guess we'll see how long that episode ends up being. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow for more Cosmonarchy. GG.